My parents on their wedding day in 1964 and then again at Christmas 2021. 18-year-old crowned Miss America Ruth Malcolmson, 1924. Halloween back in the late 90s when South Park first aired on television. My 6-year-old self at the foot of the World Trade Center, 1992. My mall glamour shots from 1997 where I look like a woman who just cashed her husband's life insurance check. Candy Kids, 97. Getting ready for the rave. My brother in the mid-70s about to fly on an airplane for the first time. 70 years have passed, my brother on the right, and I are inseparable. Samuel L. Jackson and bride LaTanya in 1980. They are still married 42 years later. Jonathan Banks from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, 1982. Polaroids of the cast of Clueless, 1995. Hubby's senior picture, 1984. This picture got me pregnant in the back seat of a Camaro. Lyndon Johnson listening to a tape from his son-in-law, sent from Vietnam, 1968. My father on left. 1968 Dalton's Nong. His high school graduating year he was drafted into Vietnam. My mother in Monrovia, Liberia 1978. My mom, 1972, tripping on shrooms and found a frog friend. My grandpa with his buddy, probably getting ready for a night out. Lublin City, Poland, mid-1950s. My uncle in Panama City Beach 1982. B-17 Flying Fortress crew members Gus Palmer, left, and Horace Pulaw, right, citizens of the Kiowa Nation stand near their aircraft in 1944. Arnold Schwarzenegger and two training partners in Venice Beach, early 70s. Buster Keaton doing Buster Keaton things, 1920s. My Uncle Jim showing off his Christmas present. Vinyl from a 60s pop group. 1912 The musicians who played as the Titanic went down. The musicians who played as the Titanic went down, none survived. John Rockefeller gifting a 5-cent coin to a child on his 84th birthday, 1929. Looks like he's asking for it back. Ah, that's how Nickelback got their name. 1994. I don't have any excuses for this look. My dad and his buddies, right before they took a canoe trip from northern Ohio to New Orleans, 1977. President Lincoln meeting with the head of the future Secret Service, Alan Pinkerton and General McClernand in 1862. The crew of the Challenger, just before boarding, 28 January 1986. I was 6 months into my first post-college job, working at the company that made the main engines, on the team that wrote the engine control software. On launch days, they had one person from each function in the data room, available to answer questions if needed, and that day I was the one for software. It's still such a vivid a memory. We were all just chatting about whatever. We had been launching frequently, so it was pretty routine, less so for me, since I was new. When the explosion first happened, the crowd on site started cheering. I guess because they thought it was the SRB separation, but the people in the room knew it wasn't normal, good, and everyone was suddenly silent. One guy got on his knees and started praying. Then everyone, rocket scientists and engineers, started going into problem-solving mode, trying to figure out ways that maybe the astronauts might have survived, which got more and more remote the more they worked it out. It was before cell phones or streaming news, so when mission control was done with us I had to go back to my area and tell my coworkers who hadn't yet heard. Astronauts were frequent visitors at the site, and people felt a real attachment to them, so it wasn't surprising that some people started crying. It was awful. No more work got done that day. There were follow-on things that happened that had a real impact on my life to this day. Fixing the antenna on the World Trade Center, NYC, 1979. Ryan Reynolds back in 1983 holding a dead fish. With his fly open. My wife was a television for Halloween early 1980s. And yes, you can change the channels. Drew Barrymore with Billy Idol 1980s. Xmas 1996 and I was very much a 90s kid.